Greetings. This video is my second installment in a two-part series titled Just for the Record. Again, as I touched on in my first installment, each video will be short and quickly cover a point which is of interest to me, right? And, perhaps it'll also be of interest to others, but I also acknowledge that this will strike some as covering a mere trifle, right? Maybe hair splitting. I think an alternative title for the series could be Profiles in Manipulation. And in this second installment, I want to briefly touch on some comments which Sista E made about the Richard Katz controversy. Now, for those who don't know the story behind the story of the Richard Katz controversy, I'll quickly go through it. In December of 2020, during discussions on whether Hebrew appeared on the pews at First African Baptist Church in Savannah, Georgia, Kelly Richardson and Will Brown, who's also known as Pastor Majors, Will Brown is known as Pastor Majors, they trotted out emails attributed to a Tel Aviv-based Hebrew scholar named Richard Katz, and these emails essentially asserted that Professor Katz had found a Hebrew phrase on one of the pews. Conveniently, they never showed the actual pew which allegedly had that phrase, but the expectation was that the emails from the scholar would just simply end the discussion. Well, in my subsequent exploration of the topic, of this matter, it became clear that the emails were forgeries. They were fabrications. Now, initially, Kelly and Brown tried to portray me as being in the wrong for bringing that fact out, and many got gaslit and manipulated during that time. Many initially became enraged at Berean TV when his channel tried to honestly cover the controversy. And, in the 19 or so months since then, there's been a slow vindication on this topic, on this controversy, as a number of people, including supporters of Kelly and Brown, have come out and acknowledged that the Katz emails were indeed forgeries. However, one person who never publicly took that stance, however, was Sista E. When she would get asked about the controversy, she would usually just direct any questions to Will Brown. She didn't want to discuss it, at least not with skeptics. And, there's been a recent development, and a positive one in my opinion. You see, just this past weekend, we got a bit more insight into Sista E's actual thoughts on the Katz controversy. So before I get into that, permit me to give a bit more background here. I'm going to give a bit of background to the clip that I'm about to show, right? You see, last November, there was a discussion between Sista E, the Teo twins, and a few members of the YAAAP gang. And since then, there was some disagreement between Sista E and the YAAAP gang regarding what transpired in that meeting. And so Sista E insinuated that YAAAP gang members were lying about what transpired at that meeting. And there were de facto dares and, from multiple sides to release the recording of the discussion, right? And so the full discussion was released just this past weekend on the Orthodox Moor's channel in the video you see on your screen, which I will also link to in the video description. Now, most of that discussion had absolutely nothing to do with the Katz controversy, but there was a small portion, just under 2 minutes long, in which they briefly discussed the Katz controversy, and Sista E shared her actual thoughts, or at least she revealed a bit more of her actual thoughts. So here's the clip, and as I said, this will run a little less than 2 minutes.
The key to this goalpost move, we got to be careful when they start slandering. I had to kind of say something to Abu today on Berean's channel. He started with the whole Katz thing. Everybody know how bad that Katz thing happened. The way we need to ensure that we shut it down is when people start throwing that up. My go-to has been, that's not a conversation piece for me to handle. We need to direct that to Majors. Let Majors handle it. So if Katz come up again, that's not our discussion point, I would say, and just send them right to Majors.
Agreed. I agree. I don't even touch that. I have my own view on the pews. I leave it at that. That's for Brown and them to deal with. I don't like how that whole thing went down, so I don't even discuss it.
I don't need them. People don't realize that. And this is just between us. Me and Majors have not talked since then. I don't even talk to Majors.
None of us talk to Majors.
Yeah, none of us do. But because
to be honest with you, I don't even go to his channel no more.
Oh
no,
yes.
I don't even.
Yes. But because
because of repentance. If the brother came and spoke to us, he don't have to do it with everybody. You know what I mean? But if y'all had a live, not even a live, but a StreamYard discussion, and he repented for it and made it clear and repented even on a live because it was done live, then we could go back to square one. But until that time, I'm not dealing or touching with that situation.
Yeah, and it's an ugly topic too. And the reason why people are like, well, E, why don't you blast him? Right now, our community is still rebuilding from this incident. Me blasting Majors publicly, because again, I'm 95% sure think that Majors is live, but I still don't have that 5%. I need that 5%.
We don't want to impart Berean, because Berean is nasty.
So there you have it. I'd say that it's fair to say that Sista E knows that the Katz emails were a farce, that they were fabrications, that they were lies, it was fraud. But if that is the case, we need to take a moment to think about the implications of that, and to take a moment to think about the levels of manipulation that followed the initial Katz controversy. You know, it would have been one thing if Kelly and Brown simply went silent after the Katz emails were exposed. But what they actually did was trot out a new email attributed to the Katz sock puppet, which declared that his job had been threatened and therefore he was going into hiding. They literally did that. They brought out an email in which the Katz sock puppet announced that he was going into hiding, essentially, because his job was threatened. You know, in short, they heaped another lie upon the initial lie to convince their audience that the people criticizing the fraud were actually in the wrong, right? So they were, you know, and beyond that, there was a campaign against Berean because his channel tried to cover the controversy. That crowd gaslit Berean to the point of convincing him that his own videos on the controversy were hurtful and divisive, and so he was convinced to take a number of those videos down. And beyond that, Benaiah Israel went on Sista E's own channel and gaslit her audience, saying that anyone who doubted the Katz emails needed to apologize to Will Brown. Think about that. That crowd used her channel to tell people that they needed to apologize for telling the truth. And that's why I said this series might, you know, alternatively be called Profiles and Manipulation. I personally do not doubt Sista E's sincerity, but it does seem clear to me that certain men around her manipulated her into covering for what she knew was a lie. And they even used her channel as a platform to perpetuate the deception, the gaslighting, and the manipulation, you know? And part of that manipulation centered around the idea that if Kelly and Brown look bad, then the whole community looks bad, which was never an idea that I pushed. You know, I never implicated all Israelites in that deception, and it's worth noting that a number of Israelites firmly said it was a lie. But it is very sad that Sista E and others were apparently manipulated into believing that protecting the community entailed protecting two men in particular. Whatever the case, I appreciate Sista E saying the little bit that she did say in that discussion, you know, with part of the YAAAP gang, and I just wish we could have had more open dialogue about that fiasco, and perhaps we still can. But either way, on that note, I'll close here. As always, I look forward to the comments of others. God bless.